Hey everybody, Victoria Mattia here, also known as the Mom Care Coach. Today I want to talk about something a little bit different. On the website, or not the website, the podcast of the Mom Care Coach, we're always talking about our four intentional needs. We're always talking about how we can provide these needs to help us with our own personal self-care. So today I wanted to expand that a little bit. It is Mindset Monday, and I wanted to give you something to kind of think about. One of the things that I have to say I'm quite grateful for is my it started out kind of a side hustle idea, but it is actually a business that I work very part-time that can create full-time income. And what I love about the options isn't just about money, okay? It's about different kinds of freedom. Let me explain. So when it comes to having, an additional source of income, especially for me as an autism mom, a single autism mom, it's very important. You know, when we think about the importance of taking care of our families, especially if you have a child with special needs, there are things they're going to need as they get older. There are things that we don't want to even think about or talk about, but it's going to be important for us to address as they get older. You know, like, can they live by themselves if you have a child with a disability? If they cannot, will they be living with you? What about, as you age? Is that something still that will happen? Will you have the income that can create that for yourself? That's also something that we have to take into consideration. But what people often don't think about is how that impacts us right now. For me personally, I work from home and I have worked from home most of my children's life. I've almost always been an entrepreneur. There was like a year and a half that I also worked outside of the home. For me, that was just not something I wanted to continue to do because um, the time that takes to be away from home and then to reset once you're back in home and to create the routines that are necessary for a home to function takes a lot of time, especially if you have a child with special needs. And for me, I had always wanted to homeschool. And so that's something that I am able to do now. And that I have most of their education. And I'm really grateful for that. But what I wanted to talk about today is the fact that when you have an additional source of income that can transition to be your main income, it gives you freedom to be able to look at what if I want to eat only organic food that can go there. It's the difference between being able to travel cross country for a summer trip and or not being able to simply because of the gas prices, that additional funds can help with that. What about the fact that, like for me, I've been sick the last several days and I don't have to worry about getting my kids up and getting myself up to go to work and putting them in care and all of those things because I'm able to provide additional income for myself? Or what about at the end of the month and you're like scrounging around trying to figure out there's still things that needs to be paid for. Do you have that income? And so I wanted to bring those kinds of things up at the light because there are more and more families that are choosing to homeschool their children that have special needs. There are more and more families that realize it's really, really tough to work outside of the home when you have a child with special needs and are looking for options and looking for, okay, how do I even do this? What does this even look like? How can we make this a possibility? And, there are some options out there when it comes to homeschool content, material, and curriculum that's free. I do not use any of those. Why? Because when you have a child with special needs, sometimes you need targeted curriculum that has been proven to help their specific diagnoses. My youngest child has dyslexia as well as ADHD. He could not just use whatever kind of reading program reading program that to get him to read. He had a targeted specific kind of program that is for kids with dyslexia and ADHD and autism that helped him to be able to read. And so that particular program, all about reading, is amazing, but it's not cheap. It is not low cost. And so when you're thinking about, homeschooling your children, you need to be able to provide the curriculum that meets their particular needs. I know for my oldest child, when it comes to math, he does or both of my children do the Matthew C and the All About Math. Well, my oldest is All About Math, my youngest is the Matthew C. Both of those are amazing programs, but neither one are free. So yes, there are options out there now where you can homeschool for free or low cost, but it really just depends on your children. When I first started out homeschooling, I wanted to do Rotten Staff because I wanted everything to be Bible based. And then I wanted it to be a curriculum that I was familiar with, known other families that I had a lot of success with, which is really, really awesome. However, that's not the story for everyone, and you have to be able to give your children what they need, especially when it comes to homeschooling, because the whole point of homeschooling is because you truly desire to be able to help your children, whether it's to spend more time with them or to give them the curriculum that is the most beneficial or give them just extra time that they cannot receive in a typical school. So I wanted to address those things because all of those things require additional income. Now, when I say additional income, that I'm only meaning it requires more money than you're spending right now if you're not homeschooling, right? So if it is going to require more income than you currently have, then you may want to think about, okay, what kind of possibilities when it comes to additional sources of income working from home are out there that are actually helping people make real money. And all of that is so important, but then also you want to think about what is it you're wanting to spend that money on? Because money is energy and it needs to have a purpose, especially when you're trying to retrain your brain and your mindset to go from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset, which is very different. Often, as an entrepreneur, you are working and working and working or looking at different things, trying to figure things out without actually getting paid yet. It depends on how you get paid. Of course, there's commission based or there's one-on-one service, there's all kinds of different things. But often with entrepreneurs, there's a lot of work that has to come first before you see payment, which is a different mindset than you would have if you have more of an employee mindset, meaning like you work a certain amount of hours and every 2 weeks you get paid this amount for the work that you've already done. And so, because it's important to understand, in order to make it work for yourself, you have to have the appropriate mindset. And so, this particular video, I want to kind of just put something in your mind of, is that something you're needing? Are you needing that additional source of income? And if you are, reach out to me because not every company, when it comes to network marketing, social marketing, influencer marketing, brand awareness, brand ambassadorship, affiliate marketing. There's so many things nowadays, but they're not all created equal. And sometimes, like there's a Bible verse that talks about when a man is deciding to build a house, he needs to count the cost. What is it actually going to take for him to build that house? So that he doesn't get started and then people kind of make fun of him that, wow, you didn't complete what you set out to do. You don't want to do that. It's kind of embarrassing and plus it's kind of frustrating because you didn't actually set out to accomplish what it is you wanted to do. So when you're looking at an additional source of income, especially if you're working from home, you need to count the cost to see, okay, are people actually making money in this industry? Are people actually making money from whatever it is you're considering? And are the steps pretty simple in order to create that additional source of income? And what is it based upon? What is the premise for um, that ownership of that business? And what is the premise for you in order to actually create that income? What are the actual steps that you have to actually do? And is it something that you are capable of doing right now in the season that you're in anyway? So I wanted to mention these kinds of things because we're going to start doing more of that mindset work, that mindset piece. That's a part of our self-care anyway when it comes to our four intentional needs, mindset, movement, sleep, and nutrition, because it's important stuff. And we need to kind of talk about it, especially as autism moms. So many of us are looking for that additional sources of income. So many of us are homeschooling now. You have to have the resources available in order to be able to do the things you need to do. Not to mention, maybe there are certain therapies that you've always wanted to try, but you need to have the income to be able to do that, or the funding to be able to do that. Or maybe there's like certain tests that you would like for your child to get, or certain kinds of doctors that you would like for your child to be able to see. There has to be an ability to create that income to be able to do that. So, like I said, we're going to continue this conversation. I just wanted to kind of talk about that first and tell me what are some of the things that you're doing currently. Do you have your own business? Is that something you're looking into that you would like to know more information about? Also, I have opened my schedule for coaching if you are looking for support when it comes to like life coaching, self-care coaching, nutrition coaching, wellness coaching. As an autism mom, please don't forget to reach out to me if that's something you're interested into, and just have that conversation. I do have my email attached here in the description, as well as if you're wanting to go ahead and start that process, the link is in the description for coaching. So I hope you have a great day, and yeah, tell me what you think in the comment section. Thanks. Bye.